I'm going to talk a little bit about the career pharmaceutical development. Hopefully you can learn something from this couple next hour today. Firstly, okay. I am working in this company called UpV. Now we are UpV Irvine. We located at the corner of Michelson and Taylor Avenue, very close to John Wayne Airport. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this area. So the name UpV Irvine, we just adopted this name a couple of years ago. Before that, we are Allergan. So Allergan had been in the little city of Irvine for decades. Allergan started as a small pharmacy, and in the past several decades, it slowly grew into a quite big international pharmaceutical company by mergers and acquisitions, of course. In 2019, a couple years ago, Allergan merged with AbbVie. AbbVie had a headquarters in Chicago, and now we changed our name to AbbVie Irvine. So in this location, in this urban location, we most people here working in R&D, so research and development, where we develop new drugs and new treatment. So next a couple of slides, couple of hours, I'll tell you more about what we do. Before that, I just want to mention we have every summer we have summer intern program that now we call it UpV intern. In this intern program, we want to foster and build our talent for the next generation of scientists. Any students are interested in ST, if you happen to have relatives or siblings in this relevant field, you are welcome to pass them this information. So this summer of 2022, we will have some positions open for undergraduate students and graduate students in this in the science and medical science field. Just go to our career website and you'll see the job applications. So today's talk, I will have two parts. One, the first part is basically answer your questions, all the questions that the pursue your career, pursue your passing career program that they need me to answer about the educations and fields of study and the rewards and the challenges of any career, right? And the second is I want to make this a little bit of educational to introduce how a new medicine is developed. Because I hope this topic is timely, because lately we heard a lot of debate in the news of social media about the pharmaceutical company develop new drugs and how FDA approve drugs. So hope this education can shine some light for you in the future when you read the articles or social media posts to reflect on the process. So there are a couple of disclaimers, obviously, for my presentation externally. Today, I'm not representing my company. All the opinions expressed are my own. And the second is the copyright disclaimer. Okay, so the part one is what is this profession qualification, rewards, and the challenges. So my story, right? I have a PhD in organic chemistry. I had my undergraduate study in China. Then I moved to US for my graduate study, where I got a doctorate degree in organic chemistry. After I got my degree, when you have an education in chemistry, there are many industry or fields that you can enter, because chemistry can help a lot of our life or other aspect of our society. So, for example, petroleum industry, chemical engineering, consumer products, fine chemicals, etc. So all of them need people in chemistry education. So I decided to enter pharmaceutical development because I always had the interest in medical science, but not necessarily become a doctor or MD that go to hospital and treat patients. So we develop new drugs or new medicine that we will provide to the doctors, and the doctor will then prescribe to the patients to treat um, unmet medical needs. At the same time, we also apply new technology and new science to make the drugs more readily available to more patients, right? We not only make the very new drug and expensive new drugs, we also make the existing drugs less expensive and so that they are more accessible. So those are what we do in this industry. So I, just to continue that, the rewards of my profession is sometimes I see a project that I worked on for several years finally into turn into a new drug. So just in the past year, 2020, and the beginning of 2021, this Upway Irvine site, we have worked on 2 projects for quite some years, at least 5-10 years. And finally, they turned into products and approved by FDA. So I don't know if you heard of these in the news. One of them is called Vuity. This is the first drug that can be used to treat presbyopia, which is age-related nearsight blur. So people in the future don't need reading glasses. You can just apply this eye drop and you can read. So the second drug is called Prolipta. We just had approval recently that this drug is to treat migraine. So these are just 2 examples of the rewards of my profession that you can see your drug, your project turn into a real product and impact people's lives. And sometimes we make, over-the-counter drugs as well. When I go to Walmart or CVS, I see them on the counter on the shelf. See, oh, I have worked on that project. It's pretty rewarding, those moments. So a bigger picture perspective, in the past century or 50 years, the advancement of pharmaceutical sciences and medical sciences had made our life expectancy much longer than generations before, as you can see in this chart. So all this is because of the new science and new technology applied to medical sciences that people nowadays, this generation, any generation that are born after 1950s, we're pretty lucky. We live much longer and healthier life than people a couple of 100 years ago. So to continue the discussion, I want to clarify what I mean by pharmaceutical products. So these are the medicines or drugs that are used to diagnose, cure, or treat, prevent diseases. So these are they don't include, so today's discuss will not include herbs or dietary supplements because the development of herbs dietary supplements don't have to go through the rigorous development process that FDA requires on the new medicines or new drugs or vaccines. In order to introduce what kind of education or what kind of qualification are required in this area, I want to first start with what is R&D in a large pharma, right? So just like any other international corporations, a large pharmaceutical company can have their many departments, right? Like a commercial, legal, finance, HR. These are similar in every large corporation. it's a research and development that is probably different in different industry. For example, the R&D in pharmaceutical industry requires very different skill set than R&D in Apple. So in pharmaceutical industry, the R&D can further be divided into several different fields, like here. Discovery and research, CMC development. CMC stands for chemical manufacturing control. This CMC development is to develop how a drug is manufactured, and the regulatory and the quality. So the pharmaceutical company is very heavily regulated. In the US, the regulatory agency is FDA, that's Food and Drug Administration. Clinical studies, I'm going to talk more about clinical studies, and we also ensure patient safety and deal with medical affairs. So all of these departments, they are all doing innovations. We keep pushing the limit of science and make new treatment, new drugs available. We constantly making new chemical entities. This means, chemical has never been made before, and we design a chemical and we synthesize them and make them into drug. Similarly, biological entities, proteins, mRNAs, etc. And we also, when science and technology advances, there are new ways of deliver an existing drug. So we make new drug delivery method systems as well, right? When new manufacturing technology becomes available, we apply them to existing drugs and make the existing drugs better and less expensive. So for people working in this area, according to a 2020 AAPS survey, AAPS is the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists. Around 69% of them have Ph.D., 4% have Pharm.D. This means more than 70% of these people have doctorate degrees, right? So why do we need a Ph.D. or doctorate degree to work on pharmaceutical development? This is because pharmaceutical development, we make new things, we make a new drug that keep pushing the limit of science, right? So these are the X3 pictures want to illustrate why people need to get a PhD degree and why do we need a PhD in some areas. I don't know how many of you have seen this before. So this little, this circle, let's imagine this is the current boundary of human knowledge. Inside the circle is what everyone, the collected knowledge of everyone on the globe. When you were at elementary school, you learned a little bit about everything, which is this little blue circle. And after you finish your high school, you learned a little bit more about everything, which is this green circle. Then you go to college, you pick a major, and you learn a little bit more about everything, but in your major, you learn deeper into your major, right? And after you get your bachelor degree, you want to learn even deeper in this field, then you go to a postgraduate study and you may get your master's, and then you can then go to get a PhD. So when you learn even deeper into the same field, you focus on a very specific topic, and then it looks like this. On this very specific topic, you design experiments, collect data, and what you do in a few years is you push the boundary of human knowledge. You discovered something new. Okay, and now this boundary is pushed. You are now entered in this dark area. You find out there are many other topics that we don't know and that leave for other scientists or for yourself to discover and to research on. So that's why many PhDs, you know, when you know more about a subject, you find that there are many unknowns about the same subject. We are actually less certain about the topic once we know more about it. So the field of study, or because you know, because the pharmaceutical development, we make innovation, make new drugs, right? So we need PhDs to keep pushing the limit of certain science. So the field of study of these areas, according to the same survey by AAPS, this is a 2020 salary survey by AAPS, around 50% of the people working in pharmaceutical sciences have graduated from Department of Pharm Science or School of Pharmacy, and they have gotten their postgraduate degree in pharmacology or biopharmaceutics. Around 20% of people graduated from Department of Chemistry, got their postgraduate degree in organic chemistry, biochemistry, or analytical chemistry. Around 10% of people graduated from Department of Biology and had a major in molecular biology or cell biology. And around 5% of people had an advanced degree in engineering, such as chemical engineering. Or some of them have industrial engineering PhDs or master degrees. Okay, last question about the Pursue Your Career program is the challenges of my profession. So similarly to the rewards, challenges is that the drug development is a very costly, lengthy process. One person cannot do this by him or herself. It always takes teamwork, hundreds of people working on the same drug for many years before it gets marketed. And a lot of times, sometimes our project turn into a product. A lot of times, our project that just did not work, and we have to cancel it and pick up the pieces, learn from our failure, and apply those knowledge to the next project. So this can be the challenges that you don't always get the reward every project. So a bigger picture is the challenges faced by pharmaceutical industry as a whole is we keep balancing their two contradict aspects of making new drug. One is we want to make the best cutting edge drug and meet the unmet medical needs. And on the other hand, it's very costly to make them, and to get the investment, R&D investment back, the drug pricing is very high. But on the other hand, we want to lower the pricing, make sure that, the lower the price, the more available the drug is. So it's very challenging to keep finding the best position, balancing those two needs. So at the same time, our regulatory agency, FDA, also faces this double challenge. So one is to make it smoother for the pharmaceutical companies to have them apply the newest science and newest technology to treat untreatable disease. On the other hand, the newest, the most cutting edge things sometimes have limited data. So you have to make sure you have enough data and make the development time it's an investment back. So FDA and the pharmaceutical companies both constantly balancing those two needs. So those are longer term topics. I want to mention for anyone interested in this field, working at a pharmaceutical company is just one option. Many people worked in FDA, like the AAPS members. Many of them worked at FDA and as government agency also require the same education and background, because to regulate something, you have to know the topic yourself, right? So I'm in part 2 about introduce you how a drug is developed. I want to be interest of time. So how am I doing in time, Monica? Am I okay? Do I need to give the students certain time for asking questions?
Yes, so we want to go until maybe 3:40 and then give students about 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll cover the next part in about 15 minutes.
Okay, good.
So the next part is I want to give you some introduction on how a drug is developed. So all this information are available from FDA website. So I'm not going to tell you all the details today, but if anyone interested in know more, you can go to FDA website to find out more, right? So to develop a new drug, there are typically 5 steps. There are discovery, preclinical research, clinical research, and then FDA review and FDA post-market safety monitoring, right? So step 1 is discovery and development. So as I just mentioned, drug delivery is very lengthy, process. So according to a recent Nature paper about the mRNA vaccine, from the first time, the idea that mRNA can be used for vaccine, the inception of that idea in the lab, to the date, the mRNA vaccine is marketed and used to treat people, half a century had passed. This was more than 50 years. Many of us have not been born when that idea was incepted in the lab, right? So it was in 1995 that when the first mRNA experiment was done on animals, the preclinical testing of mRNA vaccine. And in 2015, it was 20 years after the preclinical study, a clinical study was done using mRNA as vaccine. This was many years before the pandemic. mRNA had been started as a clinical candidate 6 years before the pandemic, right? Five years at least before the pandemic. So many hundreds of scientists have worked on this, this field for several decades before a drug is marketed. So during this stage, we identify the mechanism of how a disease can be treated and find a candidate. A pharmaceutical company may screen thousands of compounds. This could be chemical entities or biological entities to treat a disease. And at the end, only several of them will be considered for next stage of development. And also in this stage, we will try to understand how a drug is absorbed, distributed, metabolized, and eliminated from body. So this is called the DMPK, the drug metabolism and the pharmacokinetics. This is field, or people also get PhDs in this field. And in this field, we decide what is the best way to administer this drug, right? Some drug can be made as tablet, you take it orally, and while others has to be injected. So this is, a lot of things needs to be done at this stage. So once we decide all that, we then do preclinical research to find out the toxicity of the drug. So this experiment may involve animal studies. You inject the drug on mice first to make sure it's not toxic. It's not toxic to animals before you treat people with this drug. From this stage, the previous stage, most of these are research. FDA does not necessarily regulate. From the toxicology stage, FDA started to regulate the process so that we know the companies are responsible for any animal testing. And next is clinical research. This may be the most important stage of developing a new drug. The clinical research is to perform studies or trials that are done in people. So you are using this new experimental drug with human subjects. So a lot of things need to be taken very seriously. There are different phases of clinical trials, right? For typical new drug development, we started with a phase 1 trial. We test a very small group of healthy patients and give them the drug, make sure the drug can be tolerated. And then once it's proven to be safe, we move to a later phase 2 study. We test a larger group of people to further evaluate the safety. And we also during the stage to evaluate if it's potentially effective. If the phase 2 study proven the drug is safe and potentially effective, then we move to a phase 3 study where phase 3 studies where you test the actual patients to make sure that to find out how effective this drug is. You have to provide some quantitative measures, right? It's not just effective or not effective, it's how effective. Like the numbers you hear on the news about how effective a vaccine is, those are calculated based on number of patients tested and number of patients treated. And during this study, we also monitor side effects to make sure the side effects can be is minimal and the benefit of the drug is more than the risk of the drug, because everything had two sides, benefit versus risk. That's the phase 3 study evaluates. So after phase 3 study, we pharmaceutical companies can file the drug to FDA for approval. So FDA will decide based on the data you give them, decide if they approve or not approve the drug. When the drug is approved, it does not mean FDA's work is done. It does not mean the pharmaceutical company's work is done. We continue monitor the safety and the efficacy of the drug by phase 4 study. This is called post-marketing studies. Because if you have learned statistics, you know that the larger the population is, the more statistically relevant the result is, right? So for phase 3 study, we test the thousands of patients. And when you give the drug post-marketing to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, the outcome may be slightly different. So at this stage, we will adjust how the drug should be used. We will further evaluate, divide the patient into different populations. Someone with certain health underlying conditions may not be best suitable for taking this drug or vaccine, while it's overwhelmingly beneficial to other populations. So these are further refined after the phase 4 study. I want to point out that those phase 1, 2, 3, 4 study are typical for new drugs. There are some other clinical research don't really fall into this category. For example, if some generic company develop a generic drug, they don't have to go through this whole process. That's why when you go to pharmacy refill prescriptions, the generic drugs are much less expensive. Those are very valuable too, right? Because they only need to prove they work similarly to the brand name. They don't have to prove the same efficacy and safety. And another point is all of these clinical studies have to go through FDA. So before anyone start clinical study, you have to file an IND application to FDA. So After phase 3 study, right? I just mentioned FDA review the drug. FDA review all the data. They have, FDA had a subject matter experts to review each section of all the data submitted, including the clinical section, preclinical, and the quality. And FDA also perform inspections on the clinical sites and manufacturing sites to make sure, this company claim they can make this drug is indeed making the drug with good quality. And based on all these, FDA approves the drug. FDA sometimes can have advisory committees to bring advisory committee outside of FDA into this review and approval process. And all the advisory committee meetings are open to public. So after the drug is approved, FDA and the pharmaceutical company continue to monitor the drug for safety and efficacy. And also the pharmaceutical company can have, when they make changes, they have to make a supplemental application to FDA. When they make any manufacturing slightest change, FDA has to approve. So if someone wants to use the same drug to treat a different population or different disease, those need FDA approval as well, right? And FDA will continuously inspect manufacturers to make sure they keep doing the good job of making good quality drug. And FDA also regulate the drug advertising, make sure the drug companies follow their rules of making accurate claims about their drug. And FDA publish the guidelines for generic companies to make generic drugs so that the generic drugs can be made with lower price, more accessible. And if any side effects needs, new or new side effects or existing side effects, all side effects need to be reported to FDA. Okay, so that's about the drug manufacturing process, and it's towards my end of my my presentation. So I just want to make sure you guys understand this slide. There are 5 steps, and this is for all new drugs and the vaccines. So hope this is somewhat helpful for our audience today. Okay, that's all I have, Monica. I can take some questions.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. And so we're open for questions if anybody has questions. Or you can type here. You can type your question in the chat if you'd like, if you have any questions.
For the summer intern, is that also for us, or is it just for people older than us?
Yeah, so for this summer intern that I have confirmed, we have an opening. It's for college students and graduate students.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there are very rarely some high school openings, but at this stage, I have not heard about this summer. Usually they will open up towards very close to summer.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question for you. For
Yeah.
high school students, what do you suggest we do if a student is interested in going into this field? Other than taking, I'm assuming that they should focus on their science classes, but in terms of gaining experience, either as a high school student or a college student, what do you suggest that they do?
Yeah, so your biology and the chemistry training are very important. Whatever you learn in high school is the foundation of your future study. So if you do well on those classes, most people, will do well in the future in the industry.
Thank you.